I am Willa, I am 30 years old, and for most of my life, I was a ghost in my own house. Before I tell you about the moment I finally kicked my entire family out of my home, tell me where you are watching from in the comments. It really helps me connect with you guys. Let's go back 2 years. It was a Saturday in Ohio. The kind of humid, sticky mid-July afternoon that makes your clothes cling to your skin. I was standing at the granite counter in my parents' kitchen, crimping the edges of a homemade cherry pie. My fingers knew the motion by heart. Pinch, fold, turn. Pinch, fold, turn. Through the window, the summer light was falling across the countertop, warming my hands, but inside, the air felt cold. From the living room came the soundtrack of every weekend of my adult life. The low, monotonous drone of baseball announcers on the TV. My father's occasional grunt of disapproval at a bad play. And of course the chaos. Careful with that vase. My mother's voice shouted, her footsteps quick and heavy across the hardwood floors. Ashley. Can you please watch the girls? They're tearing the living room apart. My sister didn't answer. She didn't even look up. Instead, I heard her voice, bright, professional, and completely fake, streaming from her phone. She was live streaming to her online audience. Ladies, you are not going to believe this Ashley said, holding up a beige shawl to her phone camera. This is 100% cashmere, and we only have 5 left in inventory. VIP members, remember to comment, sold first to reserve yours. I pressed the last crimp into the crust. I slid the pie into the oven and set the timer. I wiped my hands on the dish towel tucked into my waistband. The roasted chicken needed to rest for another 10 minutes. The salad was ready in the refrigerator, dressing on the side because Dad hated soggy lettuce. Everything was timed perfectly for Saturday lunch. Just like always. I took a breath. I had news. Big news. I walked into the living room. I got a promotion, I announced. My voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. It was matter of fact. I waited. Just matter of fact, I said again, slightly louder. Senior clinical specialist. They're transferring me to the Raleigh office. The baseball game continued. The announcer shouted about a strikeout. Ashley, Mom said, hurrying past the kitchen doorway, chasing a giggling 4-year-old. Lily, come back here. No one looked up. No one said a word to me. I stood very still in the center of the kitchen, feeling my announcement evaporate into the air like steam from a boiling pot. It shouldn't have surprised me. This feeling of being invisible was the baseline of my existence in this house. And yet, somehow, the sting was fresh every single time. Later, we gathered around the dining table. It was the oak table with the scratch near my place setting that I had polished countless times, never quite able to buff it away. The food I had spent the entire morning preparing sat in serving dishes I had carefully arranged. Golden brown chicken with crisp skin. A salad bright with red tomatoes and yellow peppers. Warm rolls. This looks wonderful, Dad said to no one in particular, already spearing a piece of chicken before I had even sat down. Mom, Lily won't eat her vegetables, Ashley complained. She barely glanced up from her phone. She was still typing responses to customers under the table. Willa, would you mind cutting her chicken into smaller pieces? Mom asked. She didn't wait for my answer. She turned back to Ashley immediately. How are sales going today, honey? I picked up my knife and fork. I reached over to my niece's plate. I cut Lily's chicken into tiny, perfect squares while answering a question no one had asked me. The position comes with a 15% raise and a relocation bonus, I said. I start in 3 weeks. Ping. Ashley's phone lit up. $2,000 in sales today already, she announced, looking up for the first time all day. Her eyes were bright. Mom and Dad both turned to her. Their faces lit up with those special smiles, the ones they saved exclusively for her accomplishments. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Mom beamed, clapping her hands together. Smart business decision taking your boutique online, Dad added, nodding approvingly. You've got a real head for business, Ash. The warmth of the chicken seeped into my fingers as I arranged it on my niece's plate, but my chest felt hollow. It was a cold, empty sensation. I've learned to identify this feeling over the years. It's not quite anger. It's not quite sadness. It's something in between. It's a disappointment that has grown so familiar it feels like a roommate. Mom turned to me. For a split second, I thought she was going to ask about Raleigh. About the move. About my career. There's a spill on the floor by the sink, she said. Would you mind? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Sure, I said. I cleaned the spill. I served the pie. I washed the dishes. When Ashley's youngest dropped his fork, I was there with a new one before he could cry. When Dad wanted more coffee, I refilled his cup without being asked. This was the rhythm we had established over years. They need, I provide. They ask, I answer. They overlook, I accept. The pattern ran deeper than today's lunch. Last Christmas, I spent 4 days helping Ashley wrap her inventory for holiday sales while she attended parties. 3 months ago, I used my vacation days, my hard-earned paid time off, to watch her kids while she went to a fashion expo. 2 weeks before that, I drove Mom to 5 different stores looking for the exact shade of curtains she wanted for Ashley's living room. Ashley has the kids, Mom had explained once when I mentioned the uneven distribution of family responsibilities. She needs more help than you do, Willa. You're capable. The truth hung in the air between us, unspoken but understood. Ashley had the kids, the struggling business, the constant drama that kept everyone's attention. I had nothing that made me essential, except my willingness to help. After lunch, while Ashley live-streamed her afternoon sales session and Mom took the girls shopping, I sat at the kitchen counter and composed a message to the family group chat. My fingers hovered over the screen. Got my official transfer paperwork today. Moving to Raleigh, NC on the 15th, promotion to senior clinical specialist. Very excited for this opportunity. I pressed send. I watched the message deliver with its little swoosh animation. One by one, the red receipts appeared beside each family member's name. Mom. Dad. Ashley. I waited. 1 minute. 5 minutes. No responses. I drove home to my apartment across town as the sun was setting behind me. My phone pinged as I unlocked my door. For a moment, hope flutters in my chest. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they were planning a surprise. The notification showed Mom had sent a photo to the group chat. I opened it. It was a picture of Ashley's daughters eating leftover cherry pie, their faces smeared with red filling. The caption read, "Someone couldn't wait for dessert." Another ping. Ashley, just hit $2,500 today. New record. I set my phone on the kitchen counter, screen down. Standing alone in my silent apartment, I felt a tear track slowly down my cheek, then another. I didn't bother to wipe them away. There was no one here to notice them anyway. 2 weeks later, moving day finally came. The last cardboard box slid into place in the back of the U-Haul. I shut the heavy metal door with a satisfying thunk. It sounded like closing a chapter. My apartment stood empty behind me, a shell I would never return to. The movers had already taken the furniture yesterday. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Come home Saturday to watch kids for your sister. Her live stream sales have a special event. I stared at the screen, tapping my fingers against the metal door of the truck. 2 weeks since lunch. 2 weeks of silence after my announcement. And now this. A command. Not a question. Not how is the packing going. Not when do you leave. Just, come serve us. I typed back, I can't. I'm going to North Carolina today. No apology. No unnecessary details. Just the bald fact. I slid my phone back into my pocket and climbed into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life, vibrating beneath my hands. 3 states to cross before nightfall. I tuned the radio to an oldies station. The Temptations were singing about the way things used to be. Hours passed without a reply. The highways stretched before me, mile markers clicking by like memories. My 8th birthday party, Mom hustling everyone outside for cake because Ashley, 12 then, had invited friends over and needed the living room. My high school graduation, Dad leaving halfway through to pick up Ashley from a failed job interview. My college graduation, the family arriving late because Ashley's boyfriend had just broken up with her. The pattern revealed itself, stretched across the years like the highway before me. Not isolated incidents but a deliberate architecture. The mountains of West Virginia rose around me, then fell away as I pressed southward. My phone remained silent until I crossed the Virginia border. What do you mean you're going to North Carolina? Mom finally responded. 7 hours later. I didn't answer. Let her wonder for once. The radio shifted to Billy Joel singing about moving out. I turned up the volume, one hand steady on the wheel as the landscape changed around me. By sunset, I reached Raleigh. The air felt different here. Warmer. Fresher, somehow. I parked outside my temporary apartment complex, climbed the stairs with my overnight bag, and fell onto the bed, fully clothed. For the first time in 28 years, no one knew exactly where I was. The thought felt dangerous. Exhilarating. I closed my eyes and for the first time in a long time, I slept without dreaming of cherry pies and ungrateful silence. 3 weeks later, I was settled enough to recognize my kitchen cabinets in the dark. I had learned the fastest route to work and found a coffee shop that remembered my order. Small victories in a foreign land. My phone lit up one Sunday evening. A notification from the family group chat. Family party this weekend. Aunt Susan turning 60. Come early to set the table and help with kids. Mom again. I stared at the message. A familiar weight settled on my chest. They had completely forgotten. Or they were pretending to have forgotten. I wasn't sure which was worse. I didn't respond. Saturday came. I spent it unpacking my last boxes, arranging books alphabetically on shelves, placing framed photos of places, not people, on my walls. At 3:17 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. Where are you? Mom's text shouted in all capitals. Everyone's asking about you, Dad chimed in, unusually active. We saved you cherry pie, Ashley added, with the least subtle bribe in history. Then, at 5:42 p.m., the incoming missile. I never thought you'd be this selfish after everything we've done for you, Mom wrote. Your sister had to handle all the kids herself while I cooked. Your father had to help arrange the tables. You've let the entire family down. I waited until after dinner, seated on my new couch in my new apartment in my new city. Then I called. Not texted. This deserved voice. Mom answered on the first ring. Finally decided to acknowledge your responsibilities. Mom, I said, keeping my voice level. I moved to North Carolina almost a month ago. I told everyone. I sent messages. I can't come set tables in Ohio anymore. Well, you could have reminded us, she sniffed. Your sister was very disappointed. I'm sorry she was disappointed. How was Aunt Susan's party? Hectic. Without you here to help. Your father had to. She continued, listing the inconveniences my absence caused. Not once did she ask about my new apartment. My new job. My new life. When she paused for breath, I tried again. The new position is going well. I'm learning a lot. The salary bump is really helping with. That's nice, dear, she interrupted. Listen, Ashley's thinking about expanding her online boutique and needs some startup money. Since you got that raise, we thought. I have to go, Mom, I interrupted. Someone's at the door. I hung up before she can respond. Sitting in the new silence of my apartment, something inside me went cold. A circuit tripped. A light extinguished. I had spent my life reaching toward them, straining for acknowledgement, and they had spent theirs looking through me. They didn't see me as a person, just a resource. The realization settled into my bones. Not with the hot flash of anger, but with the cool clarity of truth. I had been waiting for something that didn't exist. Their recognition of me as someone with needs, rather than just someone who meets theirs. I stared at my phone, expecting the guilt to come flooding in. The urge to call back, to apologize, to make things right. It didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter. Like I had set down a heavy bag I had been carrying so long I forgot it was there. For the first time in my life, I didn't call back. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. The sun set outside my window, casting long shadows across my new living room. My phone buzzed twice more, then fell silent. I didn't check the messages. There was grief in this choice, yes. The mourning of what should have been, of the family I deserved but never had. But beneath the grief ran a current of something unfamiliar. Relief. 2 years passed. 2 years since I walked away from the family that never quite saw me. 2 years of bonuses, raises, and a life built entirely on my own terms. I stepped out of the shower and caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. At 30, my face had lost the eager-to-please softness it once carried. My shoulders no longer hunched forward, ready to absorb whatever task might be thrown my way. Toby, my apricot poodle mix, clicked his nails against the floor as he trotted to the bathroom door, his curls still damp from his morning bath. He tilted his head, ears perked in a silent question. Yes, Your Majesty, I said. Breakfast is next. My condo in North Hills felt lived in now. It wasn't just a space, it was a home. The second bedroom served as my home office, where certificates of achievement lined the walls, visible reminders of a career that flourishes when not overshadowed by family drama. The coffee machine hummed to life. While it brewed, I prepared Toby's breakfast, his tail wagging in perfect rhythm to the morning routine we've established. There was a peacefulness to these moments. A rhythm untainted by the constant alerts of a family group chat, or the sudden demands for my time. Park after work? I asked Toby. He responded with an enthusiastic circle dance that made me laugh. I'll take that as a yes. The park had become our evening sanctuary. It was where Toby met Benji the beagle 3 months ago, and where I met Jackson, Benji's owner. Later that day, Jackson was standing near the dog park fence. He ran his fingers through his dark, messy hair. At 33, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who builds things that matter. His rehabilitation equipment startup helped people recover from injuries, a purpose I understood intimately through my work with medical devices. There she is, he said as Toby and I approached. I was telling Benji you might stand us up for some exciting medical emergency, and miss watching these two chase squirrels. Never, I said, releasing Toby from his leash. I watched him bound toward Benji in a flurry of paws and fur. Jackson leaned against the fence beside me, our shoulders not quite touching. How was the Cooper presentation? They loved the new device specifications, I said. That's huge. He smiled, and he actually meant it. I was still getting used to sharing professional victories with someone who actually wanted to hear them. How about the prototype testing? 3 successful trials today, he said, pointing toward a bench. Want to sit? We settled onto the bench. A careful few inches between us somehow felt more intimate than touching. There was none of the desperate need for closeness I used to feel with previous boyfriends. That urgent desire to secure their attention before they noticed my ordinariness. With Jackson, space felt comfortable, not threatening. "Hungry?" Jackson asked, noticing my expression. "There's a new place that opened last week. Farm to table. Supposed to be amazing." 40 minutes later, we were sitting across from each other at a corner table. The restaurant's exposed brick walls and warm lighting created a cocoon of privacy. I was midway through describing a challenging client interaction when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a notification from the family group chat, which had been silent for months. My hand froze above my water glass. The familiar tightness constricted my chest. It was that Pavlovian response to family contact that always precedes inevitable disappointment. Jackson's eyes flicked to my phone, then back to my face. But he didn't ask. This is what I appreciated most about him. He noticed everything but didn't pry. He didn't demand an explanation for my reactions. I turned the phone face down without reading the message. "Sorry," I said. "Just old patterns trying to resurface." Jackson nodded, understanding without needing details. Old patterns have a way of doing that. Doesn't mean we have to follow them. "No," I agreed, picking up my fork again. "We certainly don't." The waiter brought our entrees, and the conversation shifted to Jackson's latest design challenge. By dessert, I had forgotten about the unread message entirely. I didn't know it then, but that buzz was the first tremor of an earthquake. My quiet life, the sanctuary I had built brick by brick, was about to be invaded. And it all started with a single photograph. 3 days later, my cousin Ashlyn was perched on my couch, Toby stretched across her lap like a furry blanket. At 22, Ashlyn was the only family member who had made any effort to stay connected since I moved. She was backpacking across the East Coast before starting grad school, and Raleigh was her pit stop. "This place is gorgeous, Willa," she said, looking around my living room with genuine admiration. "Thanks," I said. It took a while to get it just right. The warm lighting cast gentle shadows across the comfortable furniture I had chosen piece by piece. A stark contrast to the hand-me-downs that furnished my apartment in Ohio. The sectional was a deep charcoal velvet, soft to the touch. The rug was a vintage Persian runner I'd found at an estate sale. I handed her a glass of wine and settled into the armchair opposite her. "How's the cross-country adventure going?" "Exhausting but amazing," Ashlyn said, scratching behind Toby's ears. "I've hit 12 states so far. Raleigh was definitely worth the detour, though. It's nice seeing you happy." She said the word like she was discovering it applied to me. And perhaps she was. The Willa she knew in Ohio rarely had cause for happiness. "I am happy," I confirmed, surprised by how easily I could say it now. "Work's going well. I have friends." "Jackson." I trailed off, feeling my cheeks warm slightly. "He seems great from what you've told me," Ashlyn said. She reached for her phone. "Mind if I take a photo? This room is seriously magazine-worthy. The lighting is perfect right now." "Go ahead," I laughed. I watched as she framed the shot, capturing the living room with its carefully arranged bookshelves and the soft glow of my favorite reading lamp. She snapped a few angles, then tapped away at her screen. While she typed, I went to the kitchen to bring our dinner to the coffee table, pasta carbonara made from a recipe Jackson shared. Nothing like the elaborate meals I used to prepare for family gatherings that went unappreciated. This was simple. "Good. Posted," Ashlyn announced, showing me the screen. The photo of my living room looked warm and inviting, but it was her caption that caught my breath. "At my cousin Willa's home in Raleigh. She's got her own place, a wonderful boyfriend, and a life worth admiring. So proud of the woman she's become." "That's sweet of you," I said, touched by her genuine support. What neither of us anticipated was how quickly that photo would spread through the extended family network. By the next morning, notifications were flooding Ashlyn's phone. Likes, comments, and messages from relatives who had barely acknowledged my existence before. "This is weird," Ashlyn said over breakfast, scrolling through her phone with a furrowed brow. "Aunt Karen wants to know what neighborhood you live in. Uncle Rob is asking if you bought or rent." I took a sip of coffee, unsurprised. They never showed this much interest when I announced my promotion. "Oh, it gets better," Ashlyn said. Her thumb paused over the screen. "Your mom commented, 'So lovely to see how well our Willa is doing.'" "As if she's been involved in your life at all," Ashlyn muttered. The hollowness in my chest, that old familiar feeling, didn't come. Instead, I felt oddly detached. As if I were observing strangers discuss someone who merely shared my name. "Ignore them," I said. More coffee. Later that afternoon, Ashlyn showed me a screenshot that made my eyebrows rise. It was a private message sent from my sister Ashley to my mother, which my mother had accidentally forwarded to the group chat before deleting it seconds later. But Ashlyn was fast. The screenshot read, "Ashley, did you see Willa's place? That furniture looks expensive. And she's living alone. You should ask about her financial situation. Remember how she got all those bonuses? Maybe she could help with our situation." "Your sister hasn't changed," Ashlyn said, her voice tight with anger on my behalf. "No," I agreed calmly. "She hasn't." That evening, after dropping Ashlyn at her hostel, she insisted on staying there to meet other travelers. I met Jackson for a walk. We strolled along the tree-lined path, the twilight settling around us. I told him about the social media storm. "Are you going to respond to any of them?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "I'm not planning to reach out first," I said after considering it for a moment. "But if they contact me directly, I'll need to decide how to respond." Jackson nodded, reaching for my hand. His palm was warm against mine. "Your boundaries are valid, Willa. Stand by them." "I plan to," I said, squeezing his fingers. "They can only take what I choose to give now." When my phone chimed at 11:43 that night, I was already half asleep. The screen illuminated the dark bedroom with a message from my mother. "How have you been, honey? Your father and I miss you so much." Before I could process this sudden affection after 2 years of silence, another notification appeared. "Ashley, so happy you're doing well. Your place looks amazing." My heart rate accelerated as I sat up in bed. Toby lifted his head from his cushion, sensing the shift in my energy. 2 years of silence, and now this flurry of sudden interest. It wasn't natural. It was predatory. The final message landed like a bomb. "Mom, we already booked flights from Columbus to Raleigh. We'll arrive around noon tomorrow. The kids can't wait to see their aunt." I stared at the screen, suspended between disbelief and a ridiculous flicker of hope. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they finally see me. But the timing, right after seeing evidence of my success, told a different story. They weren't coming to see Willa the person. They were coming to see Willa the resource. My phone rang. Jackson's name appeared on the screen. I answered, my voice steadier than I expected. "They're coming tomorrow," I said without preamble. "All of them. They've already booked flights." His breath caught audibly. "That's sudden. Very sudden." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking they wouldn't be coming if Ashlyn hadn't posted that photo." "Probably not," he agreed. There was a pause. "Then, if you feel ready, see them. But don't let them make you feel guilty again. You hold the cards now, Willa." As I set my phone down, I realized my hands weren't shaking. The panic I would have felt 2 years ago had been replaced by something cooler. More calculated. They were coming to my territory now. Into a life I had built without them. And this time, I made the rules. I spent the morning arranging the last throw pillow on my sofa, smoothing the fabric with a deliberate touch. The room was perfect. Every surface gleaming, every object precisely positioned. This was my space. My home. My rules. The doorbell rang at 12:15 p.m. I counted to 10 before answering. A small act of control that steadied my racing heart. 1, 2, 3. I opened the door. Willa. Mom surged forward, wrapping me in a hug so tight I could smell her familiar perfume. It was the same floral scent she had worn since I was a child. Oh, sweetheart, it's been too long. 2 years and 3 months, to be exact, I thought. 2 years of birthdays, holidays, and milestones celebrated without a single call. I returned her hug with measured pressure, neither pulling away nor melting into her embrace. Dad stood awkwardly behind her, a white bakery box in his hands. Hey, kiddo. His hug was brief, one-armed. His eyes were already darting past me to the 60-inch television mounted on my living room wall. Games on today. Bengals playing. Ashley appeared last. Her children raced past her, pushing into my condo before I could even greet them. Your place is wow, Ashley said, air-kissing my cheek. She didn't look at me, she was scanning the room like an appraiser. The girls are so excited to see their aunt. The girls who barely knew me because their mother never bothered to maintain our connection. We brought cake, Mom announced, taking the box from Dad. Chocolate. Your favorite. Strawberry shortcake has been my favorite since I was 7, I said. Mom blinked. Oh. Well, everyone loves chocolate. I wondered if she genuinely didn't remember, or if this was just another small erasure of who I actually was. Thank you, I said, the words falling from my lips with practiced ease. Let me put on some tea. In the kitchen, I heard the television switch on, followed by Dad's satisfied grunt as he found the game. The girls' voices rose in pitch as they raced around my living room, their sneakers thudding against my hardwood floors. From the corner of my eye, I watched one of them grab a crystal paperweight Jackson gave me for my birthday. It was heavy, delicate, and expensive. Amelia, I called out, my voice calm but firm. Please put that back where you found it. Ashley laughed, high and nervous. Oh, they're just exploring. Kids, you know. I know they should respect other people's things, I responded, setting the kettle on the stove. In my home, we don't touch what doesn't belong to us. A flicker of surprise crossed Ashley's face. She wasn't used to me speaking back. She nodded at Amelia, who carefully returned the paperweight, casting a wary glance in my direction before rejoining her sister. Mom wandered into the kitchen, running her finger along my granite countertop. This must have cost a fortune, she said. Disapproval laced her words, thinly veiled as concern. Your place is so extravagant, Willa. Do you really need all this space for just yourself? I like my home, I said, pouring hot water over the tea bags. The company must pay you very well. Ashley joined us, leaning against the doorframe. Her arms were crossed, her eyes sharp. What's the salary range for someone in your position these days? I placed cookies on a serving plate, taking my time. Competitive. But are we talking 6 figures? Her voice was casual, but her hunger was visible. Do you get bonuses? Stock options? The benefits are excellent, I replied, lifting the tea tray. Shall we sit in the living room? Ashley's questions continued through our first cup of tea. It was an interrogation disguised as catch-up. Does my company match 401k contributions? How much is my mortgage payment? Did I have to put 20% down? Each query was designed to assess exactly how much liquid asset I might have access to. With each non-answer I gave, her fingers tapped faster against her cup. Her smile grew tighter. Dad, I said during a brief lull in the financial audit. How's your volunteer work with the youth baseball league going? The shift worked. For 10 minutes, conversation flowed around safer topics. Dad's coaching, a cousin's new baby, Mom's garden club. But I noticed how Ashley's shoulders tensed with each passing moment that didn't involve my money. When her oldest daughter knocked over a vase of fresh flowers, sending water splashing across my coffee table, I rose immediately. "Girls," I said firmly. "In this house, we sit calmly on the furniture. We don't run or jump on the sofa." "Willa," Mom began, her voice carrying that familiar tone of correction. "They're just being children." "I know," I said. "And children need boundaries." I handed each girl a small book from my shelf. "Here. These were my favorites when I was your age. Read." Mom's mouth hung open. She was clearly unused to me setting terms in any interaction. Ashley's smile had completely vanished now, replaced by a tight line of frustration. "You've changed," Mom said, finally setting down her teacup with a small clink. "Yes," I agreed simply. The room fell silent except for the baseball game, and the soft sound of pages turning as the girls surprisingly settled into reading. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ashley exchanged a look with Mom, one I recognized from years of family dynamics. It was the signal. The go code. Mom leaned forward, her practice sigh filling the room. "Willa, sweetheart," she started. "Ashley's been struggling." And there it was. "The boutique," Ashley jumped in, her voice tight with rehearsed emotion. "After 5 years in retail, I thought I was ready. I had the experience. The customer base." The story unfolded like a script they had practiced in the car ride over. Ashley had opened her own physical fashion boutique after years of online sales. The initial investment came from my parents. But the foot traffic wasn't there. The inventory wasn't moving. The business failed within 8 months, Ashley admitted, looking down at her hands. The personal guarantee I signed on the commercial lease, it left me owing $39,000 in debt. Mom and Dad's retirement savings are already strained from helping with the startup costs, Ashley continued. They can't help anymore. They all leaned forward now, a united front. Mom's eyes were wide with concern. Dad's expression was solemn. Ashley's lower lip trembled perfectly on cue. "You're doing so well, Willa," Mom said, her voice dropping to that special tone she used when she wanted something. "You have this big, beautiful condo. You have a good job. You could sell your condo." Dad cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "To help your sister. You have a boyfriend with money, right? Ashlyn said he owns a company. You don't need 2 homes." I froze. They had been here less than an hour, and they already knew about Jackson's financial status. Someone had done their research. "Think about the girls," Ashley added, glancing toward her children. "Help your sister, and the children will have their mother back. I'm barely sleeping with all this stress." The hollow feeling spread through my chest again. But this time, I recognized it for what it was. Not heartbreak. Clarity. I watched them with new eyes, seeing the performance for exactly what it was. Their sudden appearance in my life after years of silence. The effusive greetings. The probing questions about my finances. All of it calculated. All of it designed for this moment. A memory surfaced, standing in my parents' kitchen, announcing my promotion, my words evaporating into nothing. Sending a text about my move and receiving a photo of Ashley's children eating pie in return. Years of being overlooked until I became useful again. Ashley misinterpreted my silence as hesitation. "It's not like we're asking for a handout," she said, her voice rising slightly. "I'll pay you back. Eventually. This is what family does," Mom added, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away before she could touch me. "We help each other through hard times." Dad shifted in his seat again, eyes darting between the television and my face. "Your mother and I won't be around forever, you know. You girls need to support each other." I took a slow breath, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing against me like a physical force. But for the first time in my life, I didn't bend beneath it. Something had changed in these 2 years away. Something fundamental. "I'll think about it," I said finally, my voice steady. The first cracks appeared in their united front. Ashley's cheeks flushed with defensive anger. Mom's smile faltered, unused to anything but immediate capitulation from me. Dad's attention returned fully to the game, a sure sign he sensed conflict approaching. "What's there to think about?" Ashley demanded. "We're family." Yes, I thought as I looked at these 3 people who shared my blood but had never truly seen me. We're family. But I was finally beginning to understand what that word really meant. And more importantly, what it didn't. I sat perfectly still, my calm exterior a shield over the storm inside. 2 years of distance had given me perspective, but now, facing them again, I recognized the familiar weight of their expectations settling onto my shoulders. They waited for my answer with the certainty of people who had never contemplated rejection. "I've helped before," I said finally, my voice even and steady. "I've tried for years to be heard. To be loved. All I ever got in return was silence and expectation." I looked directly at my mother, then my father, finally resting my gaze on Ashley. "I'm done." Ashley's cheeks flushed pink. "But we're family." "You can't just, that word, family," I interrupted, the first time I could remember cutting off my sister. "It should mean care and respect. Not debt collection." The words fell from my lips with a certainty I'd never felt before. If being family only means I keep paying for everyone's mistakes, then no. I'm not part of that version of family anymore. My father shifted uncomfortably, his mouth opening then closing, words forming and dying before they reached his lips. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My mother's eyes filled with tears, carefully measured to fall at precisely the right moment. "After all we've done for you," Mom sobbed, "you're choosing money over your own family." Ashley had to handle all the kids herself while I cooked, she wailed, rewriting history in real time. "Your father had to help arrange the tables. Is this how you want things to be?" Ashley accused, her voice rising. "Remember when I helped you move into your first apartment? Remember all the birthdays? The Christmases? Mom and Dad won't be around forever, Willa," Mom added, voice thick with emotion. I watched them deploy each weapon from their arsenal of guilt, recognizing the pattern like a familiar dance. They were performers who had practiced this routine for decades. And for the first time, I saw the choreography clearly. "We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate," my father finally managed a rare contribution that signaled they had reached their final play. I took a slow breath. It was time. "When I got my promotion 2 years ago," I said, "I told everyone at Saturday lunch." No one looked up from what they were doing. They blinked. "I sent a message to our group chat about moving to Raleigh," I continued, keeping my voice level, recounting facts rather than emotions. "Everyone read it." No one responded. Last year on my birthday, my phone didn't ring once. When I called Mom that evening, she said she'd been busy helping Ashley with the boutique opening. My family sat in uncomfortable silence as I laid out the evidence. 3 Christmases ago, I spent 4 days helping Ashley wrap inventory. 2 summers ago, I used my vacation days to watch the kids while she went to that fashion expo in Cincinnati. For years I've been your babysitter, your extra wallet, your convenient helper. I kept my gaze steady. And now, after 2 years without a single meaningful call or message, you're here. Why? Because you miss me? No. You're here because you need $39,000. Ashley opened her mouth to object, but I didn't stop. "The last time we spoke, Mom, you hung up on me when I tried to tell you about my new job." That was the moment I realized what I was to this family. I stood up slowly. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. "I think that's enough for today." The sudden finality of my words sent a visible shock through them. They looked at each other confused. The script had been broken. The doormat had become a stone wall. "You're kicking us out?" Ashley asked, incredulous. "We just got here." "Yes," I said. "Please leave." They gathered their belongings awkwardly, no one quite meeting my eyes. Mom clutched her purse to her chest like armor. Dad moved with the stiffness of someone navigating unfamiliar territory, grabbing the bakery box of cake on his way out. Ashley herded her children toward the door, their earlier exuberance subdued by the tension in the room. As they filed past me, Ashley paused at the threshold. She looked at my living room, then at me, her eyes narrow with spite. "I didn't think you'd become so cold," she said. The words were meant to wound. To make me doubt myself. I met my sister's gaze directly. "I didn't become cold," I said. "I became clear." She scoffed and walked out. I closed the door behind them with a soft click that echoed through my apartment. I engaged the deadbolt. Standing motionless in my entryway, I breathed slowly. I waited for the crash. The panic. The regret. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt something release in my chest. A weight I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there. No dramatic tears came. No urge to scream or throw things. Just quiet certainty that I had finally done what was necessary for myself. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the first of what would likely be a barrage of texts. Without looking, I silenced the notifications. Then I turned it off completely. For the first time in my life, I felt no compulsion to explain or justify myself. No need to answer immediately. The freedom of non-response settled over me like a comfortable blanket. Later that evening, I checked my email on my laptop to find my family had already flown back to Ohio, cutting their planned weekend visit short. My inbox filled with increasingly desperate messages over the next few days. Her mother's pleading emails alternating between "we love you" and "how could you." Her father's awkward attempts at reconciliation that mostly involved sports metaphors. Ashley, true to form, alternated between apologies and accusations. "I'm sorry if we pressured you," one email read. "But you have to understand, I'm going to lose everything." The week after, cousins and aunts I barely spoke to reached out with casual, just checking in messages on Facebook. Their sudden interest was transparent. The flying monkeys had been deployed. To each, I responded with polite but brief replies. "I'm fine." "No, I won't be visiting soon." I declined all invitations to discuss the situation. 2 weeks after their visit, a final email arrived from Ashley. It detailed in clinical terms the financial consequences the family would face without my help. The boutique would close. Parents might need to sell their home to cover her debts. The children would suffer. I read it once. Then I filed it into a folder named Family, and I didn't reply. The message was evidence that nothing had truly changed. They still saw me as a resource to be mined rather than a person to be loved. If I gave them the money, they would take it, smile for a week, and then return to ignoring me until the next crisis. I closed my laptop and went to take Toby for his evening walk, leaving my phone behind on the kitchen counter. Outside, the North Carolina evening wrapped around me like an embrace. The air was scented with magnolia. For the first time in years, I walked without the weight of obligation pressing down on my shoulders. A month later, I was back to my routine. Jackson arrived at 7 p.m., the warm glow of sunset casting long shadows across my condo. He didn't ring the bell or text. Just 2 gentle knocks that Toby recognized immediately. My poodle's ears perked up as he trotted to the door, tail swishing with anticipation. "Ready?" Jackson asked, his eyes scanning my face carefully. He didn't press for details. He didn't ask how I was feeling after the confrontation. The absence of interrogation settled around us like a comfortable blanket. "More than you know," I said, grabbing Toby's leash from the hook by the door. At Jackson's house, the kitchen smelled of baked salmon and herbs, his grandmother's recipe. I watched him move confidently between the counter and the stove, his hands steady as he arranged food on simple white plates. Benji and Toby curled up on the kitchen rug, their bodies forming a perfect yin and yang of fur and contentment. We ate mostly in silence. But it wasn't the strained quiet I grew up with. It wasn't the heaviness of words unsaid, or the constant vigilance for wrong moves. It was peace. The gentle clink of silverware against plates. The occasional appreciative hum. The soft patting of paws as the dogs shifted positions. After dinner, standing at the sink as I rinsed our plates, I found myself describing the scene with my family to him. My voice sounded distant, clinical. Like I was recounting a movie I watched rather than my own life. Jackson took the plate from me, wiping it carefully before placing it in the cabinet. "You did what was right for you," he said simply. 2 years ago, I would have launched into explanations. I would have justified my decision, offering evidence of past slights, building a case for my own defense. Tonight, I just nodded. I did. The freedom of not having to perform my reasoning felt weightless. Buoyant. Later, as we sat on his back porch watching the dogs explore the yard, a realization settled over me like the evening air, cool and clarifying. My worth was never about my usefulness. The constant service, the desperate attempts to be indispensable, all of it was based on the flawed belief that being needed was the same as being loved. I thought about my morning walks with Toby. How they had transformed from hurried necessities into peaceful rituals. I thought about my promotion last month to regional director, accepted without a whisper of guilt. I thought about the dinner club I joined, where we talk about books and politics and silly TV shows, and where no one keeps a tally of who hosted last. "You know what's strange?" I said, my voice soft in the gathering darkness. For years, I thought family meant blood relations. People you're stuck with. Now I realize it's about choice. The holiday photo card on my refrigerator flashed in my mind. It was me with Jackson and our friends at the lake last summer. All genuine smiles and unforced joy. No stiff poses or color-coordinated outfits like the Clark family portraits of my childhood. Just real people who chose each other's company. Months later, my phone rang while I was watching the sunset from my balcony. My mother's name appeared on the screen. It was the first call since the confrontation. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello. Willa," she began, her voice tentative. "Small. I owe you an apology." "We all do." I felt my breath catch, then release. No racing heart. No desperate hope. Just calm acknowledgement. "I appreciate that," I said evenly. "I need time," she continued. "To understand where we went wrong. But we miss you." "I need time too," I said. "Of course," she said quickly. "Whatever you need. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'd like to try again. On your terms." I didn't rush to answer. There was no urgency anymore. No compulsion to fix or smooth over. "I'll think about it," I told her. And we hung up. The next evening, Jackson and I sat on his patio, watching our dogs chase each other through the yard. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold light. A quiet smile formed on my lips as I observed the peaceful scene we had created together. "What?" Jackson asked, noticing my expression. For the first time in my life, I said, "I'm not holding my breath." The words hung in the evening air. Simple and true. Tonight was calm, and for Willa, that was enough. The peace I found didn't mean the storm was over. It just meant I was finally watching it from inside a sturdy house instead of standing in the rain. 6 months after my mother's apology call, the silence broke again. But this time, it wasn't a text message or a passive-aggressive Facebook comment. It was a frantic voicemail from my father at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Willa, pick up. It's bad." The bank is here. Just call us. I was in a conference room in Raleigh, finalizing the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. My phone vibrated against the mahogany table. I saw the transcription of the voicemail scroll across my screen. The bank is here. My heart did that old, familiar stutter step. The conditioning of 3 decades doesn't vanish overnight. My first instinct was to rush out of the meeting, call them back, and ask how much they needed. My muscles tensed, ready to spring into fix-it mode. Then I looked across the table. Jackson was there, not as my boyfriend, but as a consultant on the project. He caught my eye. He didn't know what the message said, but he saw the shift in my posture. He gave a microscopic shake of his head. Breathe. I took a sip of water. I finished my presentation. I answered questions about Q3 projections. I waited 45 minutes until the meeting was adjourned before I stepped into the hallway to return the call. Dad? Oh, thank God, he breathed. He sounded 10 years older than the last time I saw him. Willa, they're taking the house. Ashley's house. I leaned against the cool glass of the office window, looking out at the Raleigh skyline. I thought you guys covered the debt for the boutique closure. We did, he said, his voice cracking. We drained the 401k. We paid the $39,000. But Willa, she took out a second mortgage on her home to try and pivot to a new inventory. She didn't tell us. She owes the bank over $60,000, and she's 3 months behind. I closed my eyes. It was worse than I thought. Ashley hadn't just failed, she had dug a hole so deep she was pulling everyone else in with her. She and the girls, they have nowhere to go, Dad continued. Your mother is hysterical. We're going to have to move them into our place, but Willa, we don't have the room. We don't have the money to feed 3 extra people. Our retirement check is barely covering our own bills now since we paid off her business loan. There it was. The ask. It was buried under layers of tragedy, but it was there. That sounds incredibly stressful, Dad, I said. My voice was calm, contrasting sharply with his panic. Stressful. It's a disaster. He paused, waiting. Waiting for me to offer. Waiting for the good daughter to say, send me the bill. I'll fix it. I stayed silent. Willa, he said, the desperation leaking through. We were wondering, we know you said no before. But this is different. This is homelessness. If you could just loan us enough to get the bank off her back for a few months. Just until she gets a job. A loan, I repeated. Like the investment in the boutique was a loan. She's your sister. I know, I said. And she is an adult who made risky financial decisions. Dad, I am not sending money. I cannot set myself on fire to keep Ashley warm. So you're just going to let her end up on the street? She's not on the street, I corrected him. She's moving in with you. That is a safety net. Most people don't even have that. We can't afford it. Then Ashley needs to get a job, I said. Not a business. Not a startup. A job. With a paycheck. Today. There was a long silence on the other end. You've really hardened, haven't you? I've learned, I said. I love you, Dad. But my answer is final. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of holding a boundary that heavy. 2 weeks later, my company needed someone to visit a potential partner facility in Columbus, Ohio. My boss asked if I wanted to go, knowing it was my hometown. I'll go, I said. I didn't stay with my parents. I booked a room at a Marriott downtown. The first night, I invited my parents to dinner. Just my parents. I told them clearly, I want to see you, but I am not ready to see Ashley. They met me at a neutral location, an Italian restaurant halfway between my hotel and their house. When they walked in, I barely recognized them. Mom looked frail. Her hair, usually dyed a vibrant blonde, was showing gray roots. Dad's shoulders were slumped, his polo shirt hanging loosely on his frame. They looked like people who had been carrying a burden far too heavy for far too long. We ordered. The conversation was stilted. We talked about the weather. The traffic. She's working at a call center, Mom said suddenly, interrupting my story about Toby's new trick. I put down my fork. Who? Ashley, Mom said. Her eyes were rimmed with red. She hates it. She cries every night when she comes home. The girls are sleeping in the living room on an air mattress because we don't have enough bedrooms. I'm glad she found work, I said. That's a good step. It's humiliating for her, Dad muttered. After owning her own business. It's a paycheck, Dad, I said. There is no shame in honest work. It's not enough, Mom whispered. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. Willa, please. Just $5,000. Just to help us buy groceries and maybe get the girls proper beds. We are drowning. I looked at my mother. I saw the manipulation, yes, but I also saw genuine fear. They had enabled Ashley for so long that they had cannibalized their own future. Now they were facing the consequences. I pulled out my wallet. Mom's eyes lit up. I took out a card. Not a credit card. A business card. This is the number of a bankruptcy attorney and a financial planner who specializes in debt consolidation, I said, sliding it across the table. I have already paid for a 1-hour consultation with both of them. This is how I can help. Mom stared at the card like it was an insult. Lawyers. We don't need lawyers. We need cash. Cash will disappear in a month, I said firmly. You need a plan. You need to protect your remaining assets before Ashley's debt swallows your house too. This is the only help I am offering. Mom pushed the card back. I don't want this. Then you leave with nothing, I said. The silence at the table was deafening. The waiter approached, sensing the tension, and asked if we wanted dessert. No, Dad said gruffly. Check, please. I've got it, I said. I paid the bill. $140. It was a drop in the bucket for me now, but I knew it was more than they could afford to spend on a meal. As we walked out to the parking lot, Mom stopped. She didn't hug me. She just looked at me with a mixture of sadness and confusion. I don't understand, she said. We raised you to be generous. You raised me to be compliant, I corrected her gently. There's a difference. I am generous with people who respect me. I am generous with myself. But I am done financing a tragedy you refuse to rewrite. I watched them get into their aging sedan. As they drove away, I didn't feel the old guilt. I felt a profound sadness for them. They were trapped in a cycle they had built, brick by brick. But for the first time, I truly understood that I didn't have to be trapped in it with them. I drove back to my hotel. I called Jackson. How did it go? He asked. They didn't take the help, I said. The money? No, I said. The advice. They wanted the fish, not the fishing pole. I'm sorry, Willa. It's okay, I said, and I meant it. I'm okay. The next morning, before my flight, I received a text from Ashley. It was the first time she had contacted me directly since the day I kicked her out. Mom said you tried to make them hire a lawyer. Thanks for nothing. Hope you feel good about yourself in your ivory tower while your nieces sleep on the floor. I looked at the message. I thought about the thousands of dollars I had spent over the years. The time. The energy. The love I had poured into a black hole. I typed a reply, I hope the job goes well, Ashley. It's a chance to build something that is actually yours. Then, I blocked her number. It wasn't an act of malice. It was an act of hygiene. I was cleaning the wound so it could finally heal. 18 months later. The North Carolina sky was a brilliant, impossible blue. The kind of blue that looks like it was painted on by an overenthusiastic artist. I stood in front of a full-length mirror in the bridal suite of a vineyard estate just outside of Raleigh. My dress was simple, silk, sleeveless, with a deep V-back. No lace, no beads, no fuss. Just clean lines and elegance. "You look," Ashlyn said, adjusting my veil, "like a queen." Ashlyn was my maid of honor. She was the only family member standing up there with me. "Thanks," I smiled. My hands were steady. The debate over the guest list had been the only stressful part of the wedding planning. Jackson had left it entirely up to me. "It's your day," he had said. "If you want them there, invite them. If you don't, don't." I had invited them. It was a decision I made not out of obligation but out of indifference. I realized that banning them gave them power. It made them the villains in my story, which meant they were still central characters. Inviting them as regular guests, that relegated them to the background. They were just people. They were sitting in the third row. Not the front row. The front row was for Ashlyn, Jackson's parents, and my chosen family, my friends from work, my neighbors, the people who knew my coffee order and my hopes and my fears. I walked down the aisle. I saw Jackson waiting for me under the oak tree. He looked handsome in his charcoal suit, his eyes locked on mine. In that moment, the rest of the world blurred. I didn't look at the third row. I looked at my future. The reception was held in a barn renovated with string lights and polished concrete floors. It was loud, joyous, and filled with laughter. I was circulating the tables, thanking guests, when I finally reached table 4. My parents and Ashley. Ashley was wearing a dress that was slightly too loud for a wedding guest, bright red and tight. She looked tired, though. The lines around her mouth were etched deep. "Willa," Mom said, standing up. She looked small. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, Mom," I said. "The ceremony was unique," Dad said. He was holding a glass of champagne like he was afraid he might drop it. "No church. We wanted it outside," I said pleasantly. Ashley didn't stand up. She swirled her drink. "Must be nice," she muttered. "Spending all this money on a party." The old Willa would have justified the cost. I would have explained that we paid for it ourselves, that we saved for 2 years. The new Willa just smiled. "It is nice. We're having a wonderful time." I looked at my nieces. They were sitting quietly, playing on iPads. They looked healthy, if a bit bored. "How are the girls?" I asked. "They're fine," Ashley snapped. "Amelia misses her own room, but we make do." "Actually," Dad interrupted, his voice surprisingly firm. He looked at Ashley, then at me. "We're figuring it out. The bankruptcy lawyer you recommended, we finally called him." I blinked. "You did?" "About 6 months ago," Dad admitted. "After the collection calls started coming to the house line. He helped us structure a plan. We're on a budget. A strict one. Ashley pays rent now." Ashley rolled her eyes, but she didn't deny it. "It's barely anything." "It's $300 a month," Dad said. "And it helps." He looked at me, and for the first time in years, his eyes were clear. "It was good advice, Willa." "Thank you." I felt a lump form in my throat. It wasn't full reconciliation. It wasn't a movie ending where we all hugged and cried and everything was perfect. Ashley was still bitter. Mom was still passive. But Dad had taken a step. "I'm glad, Dad," I said. "I really am." "We're not staying late," Mom said, clutching her purse. The drive back is long, and we couldn't afford a hotel for 2 nights. I understand, I said. I didn't offer to pay for a room. I didn't offer to let them stay at my condo. Well, I said. Thank you for coming. I walked away. I walked back to the head table, where Jackson was laughing at something his best man was saying. I sat down next to my husband. He took my hand under the table and squeezed it. You okay? He whispered. I looked back at table 4. They were eating their cake. They looked like strangers. Guests I barely knew. And the realization hit me with the force of a breaking wave. I was free. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. I had mourned the family I wanted, and I had accepted the family I had. And in that acceptance, I found the space to love the family I chose. Jackson kissed my temple. The DJ started playing Uptown Girl, and the dance floor flooded with people. Come on, Jackson said, pulling me up. Let's dance. We danced until our feet hurt. We drank champagne. We ate tacos from a food truck at midnight. As the night ended, I watched my parents' car pull out of the gravel lot. I watched the taillights fade into the darkness. I didn't wave. I just turned back to the light, back to the music, back to the life that belonged to me. So that's my story. It's been 3 years since I moved to Raleigh. I still talk to my parents occasionally, maybe once a month. The conversations are brief. Surface level. And that's okay. I learned the hard way that you cannot save people who do not want to be saved. For years, I thought my value lay in how much I could endure, how much I could give, how much I could fix. I thought that if I just sacrificed enough, they would finally see me. But the truth is, boundaries don't destroy relationships. They reveal them. When I set a boundary, my family didn't step up to respect it, they stepped away because I was no longer useful. That hurt, but it was a necessary pain. It was the pain of a bone breaking so it could be reset correctly. I want to hear from you guys. Have you ever had to cut off a family member to save your own peace? Or are you currently struggling to set that boundary? Let me know in the comments. Or if you agree that peace is worth the price, just comment good so I know you're with me. Thanks for listening.